Yeah, hello guys. So, in this class, we will discuss the NEET PG 2021 MCQs. So, these are totally based on the recall. So, guys, there were so many MCQs. Most of the MCQs were clinical MCQs, right? Some direct questions were also there, but most of these are clinical MCQs, integrated MCQs. As I always say in my classes, that nowadays integrated study is very important. So you will see the integration with medicine, you will see the integration with pediatrics, derma, psychiatry, obstetrics, complete integration was there. But definitely I would say if you read this subject with other integration, you will definitely will be able to solve these MCQs. So let's start. So the question number 1, tocilizumab. So as we were expecting this MCQ, the only one MCQ from the COVID drugs they have asked, because we have used these drugs in the COVID patients. So tocilizumab is a newer monoclonal antibody. So by MAB, it is definitely seen as monoclonal antibody for the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis. It acts against. So guys, before this, in the COVID patients, we have used tocilizumab for this rheumatoid arthritis patient. So it act against. So definitely most of you are aware, I think, it is interleukin 6. So it is acting against interleukin 6. So you can remember by C tocilizumab. So C for 6, right? So C for 6, that is interleukin 6, tocilizumab, interleukin 6 we have used for COVID patient because it is anti-inflammatory, right? So you can see the name tocilizumab monoclonal antibody, humanized cells. The source is humanized cells, and it is lowering the inflammation. So lower inflammation. So in COVID patient, because it is anti-inflammatory, we have used this. So interleukin 6, tocilizumab. Then guys, next is metronidazole. Very important question. They are asking this type of questions now. You can see metronidazole, which is anti-amoebic drug prescribed for anaerobic infection. It is also very good drug for anaerobic infection. It is the drug of choice for anaerobic infection. You should warn the patient about the drug or substance intake. So with metronidazole, there is risk of disulfiram-like reaction. So this MCQ they have asked in the FMG exam also, in this exam also. So this is important, disulfiram reaction. That is because of the inhibiting the aldehyde dehydrogenase enzyme. तो कौन सा एंजाइम इनहिबिट हो रहा है? एल्डिहाइड dehydrogenase enzyme. By inhibiting the aldehyde dehydrogenase enzyme, they can increase the aldehyde level, and that may leads to flushing reactions, dizziness, syncope, tachycardia, hypotension. So that is seen with the alcohol, ethyl alcohol. So this is one of the interaction based question. So always advise the patient, if you are prescribing the metronidazole, advise the patient not to consume alcohol with it. Risk of disulfiram like reactions. Next MCQ. During playing outside, a boy ate some fruit and became irritable, disoriented, and develops dry skin, increased temperature. So consume the fruit and then irritable, disoriented means CNS symptoms are there, right? CNS stimulation, develops dry skin and increased body temperature. So decrease the sweating, you can say, decrease the sweating. So these symptoms are typically based on the atropine like drugs. So atropine like poisoning is there, right? So atropine like effect is there. So guys, out of these options you can see dhatura, yellow oleander. So atropine means dhatura, definitely. Then in dhatura, which is the antidote, so in dhatura poisoning we use the physostigmine, that is the cholinergic drug. So physostigmine, which is the lipid soluble lipophilic tertiary amine, can reach to brain also. It is used as the antidote for dhatura poisoning. Why not pralidoxime? Pralidoxime is the oxime, that is cholinesterase reactivator, and that is used for OP poisoning. Not a drug of choice, but used in the OP poisoning as enzyme reactivator. तो ऑक्जाइम्स यहाँ ड्रग ऑफ चॉइस नहीं, ऑक्जाइम्स यूज ही नहीं करते हैं, दे आर यूज्ड इन द ओपी पॉइजनिंग, राइट. So atropine poisoning, this again the same question they asked in the FMG exam in the different language. Then guys, next is a patient with vomiting was treated with antiemetics. Patient was relieved of symptoms. Antiemetic means the emesis was controlled but develops the abnormal movements and posture. So whenever you give the antiemetics and the patient develops the abnormal movement and posture, that means after this antiemetic there is a risk of muscle dystonia. So basically you can say it is extrapyramidal symptom. An antiemetic which is causing the extrapyramidal symptoms, that is metoclopramide. Whenever you see the extrapyramidal symptoms by drugs, always suspect the two drug. These are basically dopamine blocker. So dopamine blocker में या तो antipsychotics और antiemetics metoclopramide. This is because of the dopamine blocker. Right, तो antipsychotics and metoclopramide. So suppose you have given the metoclopramide, now the child develop this abnormal posture, extrapyramidal symptom. तो क्या यूज करेंगे, because dopamine receptor तो already blocked. So if dopamine receptor is already blocked, I will use the second option, and which is the preferred one for the drug induced dystonia, that is central anticholinergics. Right, don't use levodopa, don't use methyl-dopa. Right, these drugs are not for this purpose. In this I will use the central anticholinergics. Why not hyoscine? Because that is not selective. We have the benzoxazole, which is the selective drug. So benzoxazole is the central anticholinergic. Always remember, when the patient is having drug-induced extrapyramidal symptom, drug-induced extrapyramidal means dopamine receptor is already blocked. So in these type of patient, I will use the anticholinergics. Benzoxazole is the central anticholinergic. Even cyproheptadine, hyoscine, they are having the effect in the brain as anticholinergic, but the best option is benzoxazole, that is selective central anticholinergic. So the answer would be benzoxazole, not the levodopa or not these drugs. Next question. 52-year-old male with asthma presents to the emergency room with respiratory distress. The attending physician uses the epinephrine, adrenaline, to cause the bronchodilation. Because epinephrine activates the beta adrenergic receptor. It's a beta agonist, alpha, beta both. It will relieve the symptoms. So it is a reliever. Beta agonist we are using. So which enzyme it is acting through? So beta receptor, beta agonist, beta receptor, GPCR mechanism, GPCR type of receptor, GPCR mechanism, transmembrane receptor. In GPCR, it is acting via adenyl cyclase pathway. Stimulation of adenyl cyclase enzyme, and because of adenyl cyclase enzyme, it can increase the CAMP. So that is the mechanism of beta receptor. It increases the CAMP. This CAMP in the smooth muscles, in the cardiac muscles, in the skeleton muscles having the different role. In the smooth muscles, it is causing the relaxation. So bronchodilation, vasodilation, right? So dilation, uterine relaxation. But in the skeleton muscles and in the cardiac muscles, it is causing the contractions. So that's why there is muscle tremors, there is tachycardia, right? Cardiac stimulation. So that is the role of CAMP. So beta receptor acting via adenyl cyclase enzyme. That is GPCR mechanism. Next is a patient with ECG changes. Of MI. Right? So it was like a case. Underwent CABG. What other drug will be added along with the aspirin? So guys, aspirin is antiplatelet drug. If the patient underwent CABG or angioplasty, means intervention. So intervention was done. Post intervention, there is a risk of restenosis. So we need to add the another antiplatelet drug. If the patient had gone on intervention, post intervention, we need the another antiplatelet drug, and the preferred one we use is the prasugrel clopidogrel. So clopidogrel is one of the very important drug. So we use the clopidogrel class of drug, clopidogrel prasugrel, and clopidogrel is P2Y12 inhibitor. So in these patients, we will add the clopidogrel, P2Y12. So whenever the intervention procedure has been done, always add the another class of antiplatelet, and that is P2Y12 inhibitor. Right. So this is important for MI patients. Next is, so you can see all these questions we have discussed in our classes. I discussed in this app and all. So this is important. So finger with paronychia having wheel-like presentation on upper limb. Antibiotic for treatment is, so paronychia means nail infection, and now having this wheel-like presentation like in the limbs. Antibiotic for the treatment. For these type of patients, I told you amoxiclav, augmentin, right? So amoxiclav. So this is basically, most of the time you will see the gram-positive infection, and in this we use the amoxicillin plus clavulanic acid, augmentin. So that is amoxiclav, right? So this is direct question, antibiotic selection. Next is a patient on MDT, multi-drug therapy, presented with inflammation and over the pre-existing lesion. So it's a case of leprosy which is presenting with the inflammation over the pre-existing lesion, means there is lepra reactions. So if the patient is on anti-leprotic therapy and develops lepra reaction, what will be the best treatment would be? So guys, in these type of cases, if lepra reaction occurs over the pre-existing lesion, don't stop the MDT, continue the MDT and give the steroid. Always remember, steroids are the drug of choice. Corticosteroids are the drug of choice for lepra reaction. In the severe cases, when the steroids are not effective, if the steroids are not effective, resistant in these patients, then only we can think about the thalidomide. So thalidomide is only for selected patients when we have the erythema nodosum leprosum and steroid is not effective. Then only we use the thalidomide. Otherwise, steroids are the drug of choice, right? So continue the anti-leprotic drug and give the steroids. Next question, you can see very simple question but very tricky. A patient undergoing surgery under halothane maintenance anesthesia develops hyperthermia. So it is halothane induced hyperthermia and muscle rigidity. So it is halothane induced hyperthermia and muscle rigidity. What drug would have contributed to this condition? So guys, it is also seen with succinylcholine. Halothane induced hyperthermia, muscle rigidity, it is also seen with the succinylcholine. The same effect. If you give the halothane with succinylcholine, the risk is high. And for treatment of this, we use the dantrolene sodium. So again, this is important question. Halothane induced hyperthermia or muscle rigidity, it can be seen with the succinylcholine, so both should not be combined. And treatment is dantrolene sodium. Next is, a pregnant lady was given indomethacin in the last trimester. It could lead to, so if you give the indomethacin inhibit the prostaglandin synthesis, and if you inhibit the prostaglandin synthesis, what may occur? So it may lead to premature closure of patent this ductus arteriosus, because indomethacin will close the ductus arteriosus. If you give in the last trimester, there will be premature closure of ductus arteriosus. So very tricky questions in the options you can see. Patent ductus arteriosus, premature ductus arteriosus, closure of ductus arteriosus, closure of foramen ovale. So there will be premature closure, right? That's why if the patency is maintained, we give the indomethacin to close it. So indomethacin, if already given, used, it may cause the premature closure of ductus arteriosus. That is the bad effect of these NSAIDs if we are using during pregnancy. That's why in pregnancy we prefer the paracetamol. Paracetamol is the safer option. Question number 11. A woman with 36 weeks of pregnancy presents with the painfuller vesicular lesions. So that is typically herpes. So herpes infection in the genitals. So herpes genitals. What will be the management? So in these type of patient, always we need to give the antiviral because there is painful ulcer. So give the acyclovir, and because there is vesicular lesion in genital region, don't advise for vaginal delivery, advise for elective cesarean section, right? So in this, the best option is acyclovir with elective LSCS, not the normal vaginal delivery, right? And why? To induce the labor. You can start the antiviral and then advise for elective LSCS. Question number 12, 36-week pregnant lady on warfarin, right? So it is frequently asked repeated question, having INR level around 3, what will be the next step? So whenever a patient is on warfarin, right, and now she is pregnant, so what you will advise? So in this, definitely you need to stop the warfarin and give the heparin. Heparin is the safest. After 36 weeks, you are not supposed to continue on the warfarin therapy. You give the heparin. In the first trimester also, the safest option is heparin. So whenever a lady comes with the warfarin in the last 36-week post, then you can give the heparin. So heparin in the first trimester as well as in the last post 36 week, it is the best option, and no need to continue this warfarin. You can simply start the heparin, that is faster acting drug, and can take over immediately, and INR is just 3, right? So no need to worry. Why to give the aspirin and all? I don't know. Simply you can give the heparin, stop the warfarin, and shift the patient to heparin. So this was the direct question, guys. Topical mitomycin C used for. So mitomycin C topically for non-cancer condition we can use. It is for cancer as well as non-cancer. So non-cancerous condition also we use. In cancer it is used for bladder carcinoma. In cancer it is used for bladder carcinoma. It is used for anal skin carcinoma. Topical application. In non-cancer condition we can use in the DNS surgery, septal surgery, and it is used for stenosis, subglottic stenosis, laryngeal stenosis, right? So this is we have discussed in our classes in the anti-cancer. So it is typically to control the stenosis, to prevent the stenosis or to dilate the stenosis, we can use the mitomycin C. It is liquid, topical infiltration is used, right? So this is the use of mitomycin C. Systemically it is highly toxic drug, we don't prefer, we use topical mitomycin C. Next question, frequently asked, digoxin. A patient on digoxin therapy was receiving several other drugs and presents with atrial tachycardia and conduction block. So this is the very specific side effect of digoxin. In digoxin, the most common side arrhythmia is ventricular arrhythmia, extrasystole in the ventricle, VT, ventricular tachycardia. But specific side effect is atrial tachycardia with AV block. So this is the specific. Serum digoxin level increased to 3.4, which means digoxin toxicity is there. Digoxin toxicity is there. Which of the following drug is responsible for this increased concentration? The question is very simple, ki which condition may cause the digoxin toxicity. So guys, if you see the triamtrene, that is epithelial sodium channel blocker, potassium sparing diuretic. If you see the atenolol beta blocker, again it can cause initial hyperkalemia. Beta blockers, RAS pathway inhibitor. KCl means all these conditions you can see the potassium increased. And if the potassium increased, it cannot cause digoxin toxicity because hypokalemia leads to digoxin toxicity. Hypomagnesemia leads to digoxin toxicity. Hypercalcemia leads to digoxin toxicity. Right? Renal failure may leads to digoxin toxicity. So these drugs not possible to cause the digoxin toxicity. So directly you can give the answer as clarithromycin. But if you want to know that why clarithromycin causing the digoxin toxicity, so guys, clarithromycin is P-glycoprotein inhibitor. Clarithromycin is P-glycoprotein inhibitor. So by inhibiting P-glycoprotein, it is inhibiting the digoxin digoxin efflux. So because of that, more digoxin is absorbed. Digoxin absorption will be more, and that's why there is risk of digoxin toxicity. So clarithromycin can cause the digoxin toxicity, right? So this is important. So you should know the conditions causing the digoxin toxicity. Next is methotrexate, direct question, mechanism of action. So that is competitive inhibitor of DHFRase, dihydrofolate reductase. It is the best DMARD we are using for DMARD. So it is the direct question. Methotrexate therapy in rheumatoid patients we are using, right? Also used for the tumor. Anti-metabolite. A woman was using aspirin for pain relief since years. She developed the intestinal bleed. So it occurs due to inhibition of. So guys, aspirin means COX inhibitor. COX inhibitor. Right? Now she is having the intestinal bleed. Why the bleeding is there? Because of the antiplatelet effect. Because of the antiplatelet effect. And how the aspirin causing the antiplatelet? So aspirin by COX inhibition, it decreases the thromboxane synthesis. It decreases the thromboxane synthesis, and because of that it may cause the antiplatelet effect. So decrease the thromboxane synthesis, that may leads to antiplatelet, and that may leads to bleeding due to aspirin. So that is again simply based on the mechanism of action. So you can see either they are asking the mechanism of action, or they are asking the very important interaction in pharmac, or they will ask the clinically integrated MCQs. Next is a patient of primary open angle glaucoma is a known case of bronchial asthma. Drug to be used is. So very simple question. Open angle glaucoma with bronchial asthma. So definitely bronchial asthma, I will not use the timolol, that is a non-selective beta blocker, risk of bronchoconstriction. Now out of the prostaglandins, we use the latanoprost. Latanoprost is the PGF2 alpha analog, and these group of drugs we are using for primary open angle glaucoma. These are drug of choice because they increase the uveoscleral outflow. They increase the uveoscleral outflow. Carboprost, gamiprost, these are used in obstetrics. These are used in obstetrics, not for glaucoma. Carboprost, gamiprost, right? So latanoprost, travoprost, these drugs are used for open angle glaucoma, and they are safe in the bronchial asthma. There is no harm. But timolol beta blocker should not be used in the asthmatic patient. Next question. A female taking oral contraceptives acquired tuberculosis. So very simple interaction. Anti-tubercular therapy was given. Now advised for alternate contraception. Why? Because there is risk of interaction. In anti-tubercular we have the rifampicin, and rifampicin is microsomal enzyme inducer. Rifampicin is microsomal enzyme inducer, and because of this induction, it can induce the estrogen metabolism and may leads to estrogen failure, OC pills failure. So rifampicin decrease the efficacy of oral contraceptive pills, and that's why there is risk of contraception failure. So always advise the patient to be on the different contraception method. Next is pheochromocytoma. So it is integrated question. All are correct except urinary vinyl mandelic acid and catecholamines are for diagnosis, right? So this was like this. So definitely it is true that for diagnostic we use the 24-hour urine, we check the metabolites of catecholamines and catecholamines. So that is true. Presents with the headache only or sometimes abdominal pain and vomiting, definitely these are the clinical presentation. Propranolol is given initially for hypertension. No, this is wrong choice because we use the alpha blockers followed by beta blockers. So in all the lectures I told you frequently that first I will use the A, then B. Alpha blockers followed by beta blockers. Why not beta blockers initially? If you give the beta blockers, there will be unopposed alpha action, and that may leads to vasoconstriction, right? So don't start with the beta blockers, right? You start with the alpha blocker. There is definitely postural hypotension that can be reversed by the beta blocker. So I told you the reversal, vasomotor reversal and reversal of vasomotor reversal. So this is causing the vasomotor reversal. This may leads to reversal of vasomotor reversal, right? So this is the alpha blocker followed by beta blocker. Never use the propranolol as a first drug. Treatment of choice is surgical. Definitely the resection is best option. So option C is not correct. Totally integrated with the medicine. Next question. A female patient complains of headache for 2 years, for which she is taking the analgesic regularly and there is no history of nausea, vomiting means no history of migraine, you can say, no blood vision, no photophobia, so there is no migraine. However, from past 6 months, the headache was not relieved by the NSAIDs. So now NSAIDs are not effective and was worsening. Stopping the analgesic, the headache have been improved. This is the very important line. When you stop the analgesic, the headache have been improved. So this is typical diagnosis. In this case, you can say it's a case of medication overuse headache. Very common in the females. It's a psychiatric problem, right? So if medication overuse may leads to headache. So in this type of patient, if the patient complains even after using the NSAIDs, the headache is continuously, you simply stop the analgesic and you will see drastic relief is there. So this is called as medication overuse headache. Next is, all are side effects of cocaine toxicity. All are the effect of cocaine toxicity except. So guys, in cocaine there are two important things we need to know. One is sympathetic stimulation, and second is tactile hallucination. This is the characteristic symptoms for cocaine. So guys, it increases the noradrenaline, so sympathomimetic. So hyperthermia, bradycardia, myocardial infarction, or agitation. So definitely there will be hyperthermia, there is myocardial contraction, there is agitation, but never ever you will see the bradycardia, because in cocaine you will see the tachycardia, not bradycardia. You will see the hypertension. So you will never see the bradycardia in these patients. So these cocaine bugs, tactile hallucinations, tachycardia, hypertension, these can be seen with the cocaine abusers. Next question, hypertensive females becomes pregnant. Which of the drug has to be changed? So again, direct question from the antihypertensive which are safe and not safe in pregnancy. Alpha methyl dopa is a good drug. It is safe in chronic hypertension in pregnancy. Calcium channel blockers like amlodipine, very safe drug. Labetalol is the overall drug of choice, very safe. ACE inhibitors, ARBs, they are never ever used in the pregnancy. So in pregnancy, we don't use the ACE inhibitors, we don't use the ARBs, we don't use the diuretics. So these drugs should never be used. Alpha methyl dopa, calcium channel blocker, labetalol, hydralazine, they can definitely be used. By Indian medical practitioner, best way of prescription of alprazolam is. So guys, when we prescribe the alprazolam, so first we should know that the options were given like this: tablet alprazolam. Now never give like 1 divided by 2, right? Never prescribe like this. Always you should prescribe like 0.5 milligram, and there is a gap. You can see in one option there was no gap, so this is not correct. In this you can see the correct gap is there, right? Always write, and always don't write 0.5, write 0.5. Don't write 5.0, this is wrong. Simply write the 5 milligram, right? If there is 5, if 0.5, then 0.5 milligram is the thing. So always write the 0.5 milligram. There should be gap between the doses form and dose and this milligram. Then don't write HS, right? You should write the bedtime for 7 days. Why to write the microgram? Right, because the patient will not understand. Most of the tablets they give the 0.5, 0.25 milligram. So unnecessary, if you will write the 500 microgram, that is confusing for the patient. So 0.5 milligram at bedtime for 7 days, you can prescribe like this, but always give the gap in the dose and milligram, right? So this is very important. Good question. I would say rationality of prescription, we should be aware. What is the formula to calculate the maintenance dose? So this was again direct question from Pharmac. So maintenance dose is equal to clearance rate divided by target plasma concentration, right? Loading dose is equal to volume of distribution divided by target plasma concentration. So we should know this, that maintenance dose they are asking. So clearance rate multiplied by target plasma concentration. So this was the direct question. Next is, a child presented with loose stools, he is managed with ORS. So direct question from the ORS. ORS is absorbed via which transporter in the GIT? So SGLT2, SGLT1, these two options. There were other two options were also there, right? So SGLT2 is in the kidney, SGLT1 there is in the GIT. So definitely ORS, SGLT1. SGLT2 inhibitors, we have the gliflozins in the diabetes. A patient after abstinence from consuming alcohol since past 3 days presents with irritability, disorientation, altered sensorium. So abstinence from the alcohol past 3 days means post 72 hours you can see. So post 72 hours, irritability, disorientation, altered sensorium. So this is typical diagnosis of delirium tremens. It is the most severe form of alcohol withdrawal. It is the most severe form of alcohol withdrawal. So what is the treatment? What is the treatment? The treatment for this alcohol withdrawal severe form is benzodiazepines. Benzodiazepines, right? So this was, you can say, psychiatry integration. Then guys, 27th, a 68-year female present with atrial fibrillation with mitral stenosis. So it means valvular. It means valvular heart disease. Echo does not show any thrombus, so this was just to confuse you. If there is mitral stenosis, then always we need the anticoagulants. In valvular, we need the anticoagulant, and best is warfarin. So warfarin is the best anticoagulant for mitral stenosis, moderate to severe mitral stenosis or valvular heart disease. We always give the warfarin. So dabigatran we don't prefer for valvular heart disease. We give the warfarin in the valvular heart disease. Patient with CKD not having urine output and peripheral edema, which antihypertensive is safe? So guys, in this question there was a lot of controversy, right? Exact language is basically not recalled. If chronic kidney disease, then the answer will be different. If end stage renal disease, answer will be different, right? So controversy, but if the language is like this, if there is CKD, not having urine output, some peripheral edema, ideally I would say if cilnidipine in the choice, then cilnidipine is best. Cilnidipine, that is calcium channel blockers. So calcium channel blockers are basically best. Cilnidipine is best, right? But in this, cilnidipine was not in the choice. Amlodipine was in the choice, but because there is peripheral edema, so we will not prefer the amlodipine if there is peripheral edema, right? In CKD patients, we will not use the aliskiren, so it is not in the list, right? Now you can use this drug and this drug. These 3 drugs can be used, but out of these, if there is CKD, not having urine output, peripheral edema, then chlorthalidone I would select most. But again, I would say in this question there is controversy. Without knowing the exact language, it is very difficult to say the exact answer. But this type of question was there, right? If you see this type of question, CKD patient, and if you ask me the overall preferred option, then I would say calcium channel blockers. Cilnidipine is best because cilnidipine even do not cause the edema, right? Amlodipine definitely can cause some edema. Then which of the following NSAID is considered safe in the renal disease? So again, direct question from Pharmac. So all these are NSAIDs, but out of these, paracetamol is the safest, right? No kidney problem, right? It is safer as compared to other. I would not say there is no kidney toxicity, but some, right? Safest is paracetamol. A patient was started on antihypertensive. Following, he develops the following presentation. So basically, there was an image of angioedema, right? Facial swelling. Which drug? So I think everybody is aware the ACE inhibitors like captopril group of drug, because of the bradykinin related side effect. So captopril class can cause the angioedema out of the antihypertensive. So digoxin is not antihypertensive. Amlodipine do not cause the angioedema, it can cause the pedal edema. Atenolol is again having very less risk, it can have some hypersensitivity, but angioedema is not commonly seen. Lisinopril, captopril, ACE inhibitors, and they can definitely cause the angioedema, right? So this is about the this recall of NEET PG 2021. So you can see most of the questions, I would again say conceptual questions or clinical questions. So guys, focus on the concepts, try to integrate with the clinical subjects as much as possible, but without basic knowledge, without concepts, it is very difficult to solve these type of questions. So please don't directly jump on the clinical part. First try to clear your concepts and then definitely integrate with the clinical part. So that's all. Thank you. Bye bye.